All right, everyone, this is it. Volume 2 of the Pictorial History of the Second World War. We will start, as we did with the beginning of the last book, at the first page, which reads the third year. This will probably be one video. It might be a little bit longer because of how long this usually takes me to read through. So we will get through this as fast as I can, and I hope you guys enjoy. Now we will start. The third year. By November 1941, the United States was all but at war. The Lend-Lease Act, which permitted the shipment of arms and materials into England, had been signed in March. After she entered the war against the Axis, Russia was made a beneficiary and was now receiving useful contributions at Murmansk in the far north and through Iran in the south. The U.S. Navy was patrolling the Atlantic in an effort to ensure the delivery of this material. Several American merchantmen had been sunk by German U-boats, and 2 U.S. destroyers had been torpedoed. Tensions between the United States and Japan, ascendant since 1940, had now reached the critical stage. The U.S. State Department was demanding 2 explanations from Japan, specifically why she was massing troops in French Indochina, and generally, what was her future policy regarding China. Special Japanese envoy Saburo Kurosawa, my bad, took me a minute there, came to the United States in mid-November with a portfolio full of replies. But the real answer came on December 7th, the day of infamy, when 200 American... my bad, I was reading between the lines there a little bit. When 200 aircraft carrier-borne planes attacked the American fleet and installations at Pearl Harbor. Simultaneously, Japan struck at the Philippines, Hong Kong, Thailand, and the Malaya States. Japan's entire campaign in the Pacific was based on crippling the U.S. fleet at Pearl Harbor. Judged strictly on its military merits, the sneak attack was entirely successful. 1 battleship was lost, and several others so severely damaged that they were out of service for months to come. Japan's early progress was rapid. On June 2nd, 1942, Manila fell, and General Douglas MacArthur's forces retired to the Bataan Peninsula to begin their historic delaying tactics. The battle for Malaya was won on February 15th when Singapore surrendered. My gosh. By March 1st, the Netherlands Indies, with Sumatra, Borneo, and Celebes, that doesn't sound right, gone, were still carrying on Java as a last stronghold. Japan had already invaded Burma, capturing Mulmin February 1st, and then Rangoon, the entry port of the Burma Road, March 9th. Against the dark picture of Japanese victories in the Pacific was silhouetted the brighter situation on the Russian front. Starting in late November 1941, and aided by the Russian winter, the Soviet troops had staged a great recovery in the south. Rostov had been retaken, and in the north, the stages of Leningrad and Moscow relieved. On March 1st, 1942, the Russians were driving the Germans before them towards White Russia and exacting a heavy toll in manpower and equipment as they advanced. Fall of the Netherlands Indies. In late February, the Japanese launched an all-out attack against Java. The fate of the island was sealed in a naval battle in the Java Sea, February 27th to March 1st. In this engagement, the combined U.S. and Dutch fleets lost 13 cruisers and destroyers, practically their full complement, and they were no longer able to prevent Japanese landings on Java. Batavia fell on March 5th, and by March 10th, all resistance had ended. With the Netherlands Indies conquered, the Japanese High Command directed its efforts in three spearheads. One pushed on through Burma, another attacked New Guinea in a preliminary drive on Australia, and the third was capitulated at the Philippines in an effort to crack the Bataan defense. The Burma drive was still progressing in late April, with the Japanese approaching India's border. Great Britain, concerned with the threat to India, had offered this nation dominion status in exchange for military cooperation. The proposal was rejected by Indian leaders. That's all it says. In New Guinea, the Japanese established a beachhead at Salamoa. Sorry if I mispronounced that. March 8th, from which they began an advance on the port of Moresby. Reinforced Allied air strength based on Australia pounded the Japanese base at Salamoa and Rabaul on Britain, which had been previously captured. The menace to Australia seemed at least temporarily checked in late April. After holding off a sustained 3-week attack by picked Japanese troops, the defenders on Bataan were compelled to capitulate on April 9th. Several thousand American and Filipino troops escaped to Corregidor Island. That doesn't sound right, but it looks right. Corregidor Island, where they surrendered on March 6th after ammunition and food supplies became exhausted. On January 2nd, 26 nations had signed the United Nations Pact at Washington. This agreement called for a unanimity of purpose and action against the Axis powers. Each signer pledged his country's full resource in the pursuit of the war and agreed no separate peace was to be made. By May, there were definite signs that the United Nations were gaining in strength. To block Japanese control of Indian Ocean, British forces landed on the French island colony of Madagascar. After a campaign, the Vichy France forces were subdued, and the danger averted that Madagascar might go of the way of French Indochina. On the night of May 30th to 31st, Great Britain launched the first great air attack on Germany. Over 1,000 bombers blasted Cologne in a raid that razed much of the city and destroyed many of its vital war industries. The raid on Cologne was the first of the prestigious air assaults on German soil that were to continue for the next 2 years and which were expected to provide a minor second front action. Coral Sea and Midway. The advance of the Japanese in South Pacific was finally halted by two great and critical naval battles. On May 4th, a strong American fleet composed of aircraft carriers and escorting ships contacted a large Japanese fleet cruising in the Coral Sea towards Australia. In an engagement that lasted until May 7th, and one that was unique, and the opposing fleet never were within gun range of one another, American carrier-borne planes sunk 15 Japanese warships, including one large carrier. The American losses were one carrier, the Lexington, one destroyer, and one tanker. On June 4th, a large flotilla of Japanese warships and transports arrived off Midway Island and began an air attack that was obviously a preliminary move on Pearl Harbor. Midway's land-based aircraft stopped the assault on the island and forced the Japanese fleet to withdraw. An American fleet stationed in the vicinity in anticipation of such an enemy thrust, pursued the Japanese and administered a crushing naval defeat that altered the whole course of the war in the Pacific. When the battle ended on June 7th, American bombers had sunk 4 carriers, 2 cruisers, and 3 destroyers, and had damaged 3 battleships and 4 cruisers. 4 cruisers, as well as a number of lighter ships. The American fleet suffered the loss of the carrier Yorktown and a destroyer. Midway was similar to the Coral Sea engagement in that distances prohibited surface fire, and the damages sustained both sides resulted from air action. Libyan action. In Libya, the picture for the United Nations was not so bright. After the British had pushed the Italians out of Egypt in the spring of 1941, the German the German Africa Corps, was formed and sent to fight beside their allies. Another British offensive in November 1941 again was Benghazi. Won Benghazi by December 25th. At this point, German General Erwin Rommel took charge of the Axis fortunes in Libya and succeeded in retaking Benghazi, January 29th, 1942. A new phase of the seesaw battle of Serinsia began in May when the British started another westward thrust, which showed much promise in the early weeks. But Rommel soon outmaneuvered the British, took Tobruk, which they had held through all their adversities, and slashed his way into Egypt. He took Matruh, the Egyptian fortress, July 1st, and advanced until he reached El Alamein, only 70 miles from Alexandria, the British naval base. At El Alamein, the British braced, and the battle-weary African corps were unable to get to Alexandria and the Suez Canal. The long-awaited Second German Offensive into Russia started in early June. Known German forces took Sevastopol, July 2nd, and Rostov, July 28th, and then drove 2 spearheads, one at Stalingrad, which came under siege in mid-August, and the second at the oil-laden Caucasus region. The Solomons. American Marines opened their campaign to take the Japanese-occupied Solomon Islands on August 7th. The first assaults were at Florida. That's weird. Tulagi, and then Guadalcanal. The landing operations were supported by fleet action during which the Americans lost 4 cruisers in the naval battle of Savo Island. And on the night of August 9th, within a few days, the Marines captured the Japanese-built airfield on Guadalcanal, Henderson Field, and at the long struggle for the Solomons and the protection of the Allied supply lines was underway. All right, well, that gives us a little bit of what happens in the pictures that we're about to see before we go into great detail. And that's going to do it for this video. If you guys liked this video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a comment. Tell me what I can improve on. I appreciate your feedback. And as always, subscribe. It really does help. I hope you guys are looking forward to getting into this. I have since yesterday, so I'll see you in the next one.